Hello everyone and welcome to the latest edition of the Bolton Wanderers official podcast, Wanderers Way, in association with iHeat, with myself, Derek Clark, and Super John McGinley. It brings us great delight to say we're joined by broadcasting royalty this week, a man synonymous with so many brilliant moments in Bolton Wanderers history. It is the one and only Jack Dearden. How's it going, Jacko?
Yeah, good as gold, thanks. Great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. Looking forward to it.
Wanderers Way, the official podcast of Bolton Wanderers Football Club in association with iHeat. Coming up.
It's been a rocky road sometimes, as we all know, but it just adds to the spice sometimes, doesn't it? So it just adds to the spice of what you expect. I've always said, I've said this for years now, whatever else covering Bolton Wanderers has been, it's never been boring. And I don't think it ever will be. It's that sort of a club, John, is it? You know it really, really well. Bolton Wanderers marauding round Europe and squirting furry liquid in all those fountains, all those European nations that you visited. You know, just having fun and just absolutely amazing. And I feel sometimes for people who haven't experienced that with Bolton. I mean, I know you can go back further. You know that. And I know, you know, in the Nat Lofthouse era, and that was a great era for the club, John. You can't, ignore that. No. But I still maintain that the most successful period in this club's history was going into the Premier League, getting to the League Cup final, finishing, beating Arsenal and teams like that. Oh, come on, Fernando Hierro. What?
Rolls Royce.
What? He was the best defender in the world for 5 years at Real Madrid. All of a sudden, he's pulling up in the car park. All right, Fernando, where do I go? Where's the dressing room? Let's go down there, you'll be all right.
Wanderers Way, the official podcast of Bolton Wanderers Football Club in association with iHeat. Yep, could you get Jack on, isn't it, John?
King Jack, royalty. You're right, but
I'm not so sure about that, John.
No, you are, Jack.
No.
You know you're very, very highly regarded for many reasons.
That's because I've been very loud.
No, you've been very good, Jack. You certainly saw plenty, that's for sure.
That's true. Although it's been an absolute. I said this to everybody. It's a pleasure and a privilege to do what I do. Obviously, I've got an involvement in rugby league as well. That's my great passion. But to have been a part of Bolton Wanderers, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and there's been a bit of all three in the last better part of the last 30 years that I've covered Bolton Wanderers now. But I wouldn't like to have missed a single minute of it. It has been amazing. It's been a rocky road sometimes, as we all know, but it just adds to the spice sometimes, doesn't it? So it just adds to the spice of what you expect. I've always said, I've said this for years now, whatever else covering Bolton Wanderers has been, it's never been boring. And I don't think it ever will be. It's that sort of a club, John, is it? You know it really, really well.
It is, Jack, and like you said, it's a roller coaster, isn't it?
And absolutely.
You've seen the highs, you've seen the lows, and we just keep bouncing back, don't we?
Well, yeah, and great credit to everybody concerned as well, particularly the last bounce back as well, to be fair, because, you know, everybody knows, they don't need me to remind them, or anybody else for that matter, they were close. They were close to not being here. And by not being here, I don't just mean going into administration. They were very, very close to not being here at all, to being wiped out. I mean, sadly, I know there's great rivalry, and that's fine. And long may that continue. Sadly, Bury went, you know, and there was no rescuing the Shakers, who had a soft spot for as well at the time. But, you know, Bolton were very, very close at the time, and we don't want to return to that. And things are picking up now, and I think the new owners have done a fantastic job in a very short space of time.
Well, like you said, Jack, you know, it doesn't even bear thinking about, you know, this town without the football club. No. And like you said, Bury, sad situation there. Good to see them now coming back. They seem to have reformed and joined up the two clubs together now, and they're really making a push coming up the leagues. So good luck to them going forward. But like you said, it doesn't bear thinking about.
Absolutely not. And you know, I hope they continue to make progress. And as I said, you know, there's lots of rivalry around, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, as long as it's done in the right manner and people behave themselves. I don't think genuine people want local clubs to see that, but what's happened at Bolton, John, that we've all witnessed, particularly since the new owners came in, not only have they revitalised the team, they've reconnected with the town.
Huge.
And the town supporters. I think everybody knows, returning to those dark days when previous people had the say in the running of the club. Clearly, it was never really going to work. Now, I mean, when you look around here, I mean, look at the infrastructure. This is Premier League. The infrastructure at this club is Premier League, and it's been in the Premier League, and it's got great history from the Premier League as well. And the sooner it gets back there, the better. And we all hope that will happen one day. And I just think there's more than hope. I think there is an expectation as well. Got to get out of this league we're in now. I always say this to people: don't matter how you get out of this league, when you get in the Championship, you are one league away from the promised land in footballing terms, in financial terms. It is the promised land, the Premier League, and that's why it attracts so much attention. That's why clubs who are in the Championship, in my opinion, attract attention from potential investors.
Yep.
Whether that might happen here in the future, who knows? But the present at the moment, I know people said, lots of fans will say, been in this division too long, etc. But it's a hell of a division to get out of. It is not easy. I mean, Sunderland, Sheffield United spent some time here as well, John. As you know, it is not easy to get out of this division.
Well, at this moment in time, we find ourselves entrenched in this league. And like you said, it's difficult. We've invested, we've good squad, everything else. Like you said, you look around the infrastructure here, we are geared for a higher division, no question about that. It'll happen, Jack. It will happen, no doubt. We're ready for it.
I've also got to say as well, the fans, since the new owners took place, have really helped in that regard. They have responded. I see other clubs in other areas who don't have that availability and that capability, but the fans deserve an enormous pat on the back with what went before. In a strange sort of way, they feel as though they've got the club back.
Yeah.
When the previous people were in charge, they'd lost it. They'd lost that relationship they had with the fans. They'd lost the relationship with the town. They'd lost the relationship with genuine supporters of the club. And they revitalised that in the new owners. And that wasn't easy to do. I've always thought that in the recent history of Bolton Wanderers, one of the most important seasons in Wanderers' recent history was to go back up straight away. When Ian Evatt came in, it was absolutely crucial that they went back up from League Two back to League One at the first time of asking. And I think that's been one of the most important seasons in Bolton's recent history. And they went up, we were at Crawley that day, John, weren't we? They went up at Crawley automatically in the end. And you've got to celebrate those times as well, because you never know how long it is before you get that type of opportunity again. But we've been close in the last few seasons. Been close.
Been really close, Jack. I mean, it's, when you think back to last year's final, we didn't really turn up, we didn't perform on the day, but you're 90 minutes away from promotion, and that's, if you're still in the mix at that point and you've still got a chance, you've had a decent season. And I think you can forgive, although it's hard, you can forgive us not getting the result to a degree, because it's a one-off game, isn't it?
Can happen.
And it can happen, and it's not nice for it to happen, obviously, but it happens in football. That's what happens.
Strange. I mean, it will take a long time. Maybe some people haven't quite got over that. I mean, I think I described it on commentary at Wembley on that day. Bolton decided to produce the worst performance of the season on the most important day of the season. And I still stand by that now. When you think back to everything, I know it wasn't long, about 6 weeks earlier, they'd beaten Oxford
5
here, easily. Derek, they'd won comfortably. Whether that was in everybody's minds, but you're quite right. And it's not a good thing that happened, but nobody's, right after the game, whether it's Ian Evatt, the players, nobody's ever tried to suggest it wasn't good enough. Every single person knows, connected with that particular day, that wasn't good enough. And again, you're going back to when they beat Plymouth by 4-0, and that was a fantastic day in this club. I mean, a cup final at Wembley. Okay, sorry, by the way, to the new head coach, Stephen Schumacher. Sorry, Stephen, but it's got to be said, I'm afraid. How often, if you support a football club, whoever it is, You're in a Wembley final. There's 80,000 people there. You kick off at 3 o'clock, and by 3:10, you're winning 2-0.
Yeah.
Job done.
The game was won, essentially, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And as you know, just to reflect on how poor Bolton were against Oxford, that's what Plymouth had to deal with. Because I think they would be the first to admit, the season they were having and they had, that wasn't the Plymouth that got them promoted.
No.
Whatever it was, I don't know if it's the place, whether it was a bit of complacency going into the game, because they'd been there and won 4-0, because they'd beaten Oxford here 5, not that long before the final itself. I don't think that was probably it, but it can happen. You can have those one-off experiences occasionally, even to the top teams. It happens to the top teams, but they picked a bad day for it to happen to Bolton, unfortunately.
It's hard, Jack. It's hard to get, like you said, to get over it. It's hard to, push it to the back of your mind and you kick on, and it probably was still affecting us, if you're honest, at the start of this season.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think and probably more so it was affecting the fans. Because there was that feel, wasn't there, where we hadn't turned up, we hadn't performed on the day, and we go into, and like you said, the expectation now to bring success to this football club is huge.
Yeah, it is.
And the players have got to carry that in every game they play.
Yeah.
And that when we started the season and we didn't get off to the start that we were looking for, then I think things just escalated, didn't it? They escalated quite quickly.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, John. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I think there was an enormous hangover, more than what you would have expected. And it wasn't just the defeat at Oxford; it was the manner of it. And I think I can understand supporters; they probably deserve better. But I say again, everybody knew that, and everybody admitted that. There was no hiding under the table. They came out, players, manager, wasn't good enough. What can you will have played in games where you've been disappointed, John, playing for Bolton Wanderers.
Very much so.
What can you do other than, well, you've got to try and put it right. But you're absolutely spot on. Major hangover, a major hangover from that defeat.
The problem with that one, though, Jack, is normally when you feel you've let the club and the fans down, normally you can go out the next week or the following Tuesday and put it right. You've got all summer to sit on it, haven't you?
Yeah, dwell on it.
And that was, I think, the problem as well, whereas now you're sitting on it festering in your own mind as well.
Yep.
The fans aren't happy, and then everybody's building up for that great start to the season. You don't have it, and all of a sudden you're in a world of trouble.
Everybody says, don't they, going to Wembley, it's a wonderful place to win and a horrible place to lose.
Absolutely.
And that's a really good point that you've made there. You just got all that close season to think and wonder. And you haven't got an opportunity to put it right, have you? But it's fierce.
Yeah.
It is. It's brutal, really. The playoff. I mean, a great idea all those years ago. Keeps the season, everybody's season alive, or most clubs' seasons alive. So it's a great idea, but it's absolutely brutal when you get down to it. 2 legs, playoff semi-final. When you get down to that, and if you don't produce on the day, we've seen it happen before. Yeah. We really, and I'm sure we'll see it happen again. Whether it's
not to us.
No. Well, lessons learned, hopefully.
Yeah.
Lessons learned.
Talk us through how you became a commentator then, Jack, because everyone knows you from doing the Bolton Wanderers games for so many years, but where did you all start off your career?
What I did, I think I was about 35 years of age. I went to my local hospital radio station, which was Radio Cavell. It was Boundary Park in those days. It's now the Royal Oldham Hospital. I can't remember now if it's merged into community radio from Radio Cavell. And I just went there and I volunteered, as everybody does for hospital radio. Mm-hmm. I volunteered. It was a great experience. I think I did a good number of years there, and that's where I first entered into commentary of any description. At the time, they covered Oldham Athletic, home games. Same with Oldham Rugby League Club, who then played at Watersheddings. So I got the experience. It did 2 things for me, Derek, I think, and I would advise anybody, if they get the opportunity, what it does do, it gets you used to talking into a microphone, if nothing else at all. Mm-hmm. The commentary bit, well, that's up to the individual, I suppose. But that's how I started. Went to Radio Cavell at Boundary Park, and I spoke to, he's no longer with us, sadly. The guy who was running it then was a chap called Dave McGeely, who said, right, we'll give you a go. And to be fair, and this has probably happened to other people as well. You kind of get thrown in. Well, I got thrown in at the deep end, really. So you have to kind of sink or swim. It's like, there's your microphone, there's a team sheet.
Off you go.
Exactly right, Gary. And that was it. That was my introduction to commentary. A lot of other broadcasters. I think some people would be surprised how many other broadcasters have started at hospital radio. Maybe not so much now in the modern day era, but certainly from broadcasters of my age and a bit younger, an awful lot of them took that first step by going to local hospital radio, and they do a fantastic job as well, by the way.
Yeah.
They do, right? Nationwide, because I think they're pretty much nationwide. They've all got their own broadcasting units, which helps, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah. But you had a spell before that. You in Egypt, had a nice spell over there.
Yeah, when I was working in industry, I worked for British Gas. They were consultants to a company called William Press. Blimey, you're going back to 1982 now. So I was very young
Testing
then.
your memory here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh no, it's fantastic. Stayed in a place called Heliopolis. There's 4 suburbs of Cairo. Very briefly, what happened? Whether it's the Egyptian government, can't quite remember now, but they found natural gas in the Sahara Desert, and at the time, in and around those 4 suburbs of Cairo, Heliopolis was one, Mardeh was another, and they decided to bring in to the suburbs from the desert, effectively, natural gas, because they all used bottled gas at that time. And that was an absolutely stunning experience, probably one of the great experiences of my whole life, to be there in 1982. And it wasn't long after, you may not remember this, they had a president called President Sadat, and he was sadly assassinated. I kind of went on the back of that. Not there was anything to do with him being assassinated, but he was assassinated. Oh, it was an amazing experience. Not for that reason, but just to go around that time in 1982. I think it was October 1982 when unfortunately President Sadat left us, and then just to get the opportunity. And it was strange how that came about. At that time, I was off work on this particular Friday. I was on holiday. I'd made my interest known in the possibility of going to Egypt about 18 months previously, and then I just got ordinarily 9 times out of 10 it was a working day. I was just off on that Friday. No mobile phones in those days, by the way. So phone went, picked it up. I was still interested, and I went to. This was like on a Friday. I think on the following Monday. Can you get yourself up to? I went to Darlington General Hospital. Had an interview with a couple of blokes, sit outside, called you back in, told you straight away, right, you've got the job. Can you go to Darlington Hospital? I think I had 2 jabs, 1 in either arm, 1 in either leg, and just for good measure, a sugar lump. And there's your train ticket for Cairo. That was it. It was absolutely amazing.
The pinging of the gloves.
Absolutely amazing. Oh, listen, when I look back now, there's times when you think, I don't know, whether or not you look back on that time, you think, was that right? Was that wrong? It worked for me. I've got to say, just. Under 12 months I was there, just under 12 months. And I think they'd probably got behind with the contractual obligations, and hence the 18 months wait to ringing Jack up with a phone call. I think they thought, we need more people here. But it was great. I met some fabulous people. That was great. And played a bit of football out there as well. And played rugby.
Bet it was hot over there.
Yeah, it was hot. Yeah, it was hot.
You'd like that though, Jack. You're like the heat. Their shorts rolled up and all that. Can you just picture them?
No, weren't like to wear shorts.
You're not?
No, absolutely not. No, weren't like to wear shorts in those. But it was just great.
The experience though, living in a different culture. And
for me, John, at that time, in 1982, 52, 62, 70, so I was only 30.
Right.
It was fantastic. It really was. And just the people I met, it was just amazing. Staggering. Really opened my eyes to how other people live, how other people survive, in all sorts of areas. It was in Egypt, in these zones, you got splendour and poverty side by side.
Yeah.
You know, somebody might be living in a cardboard box next to a great big mansion like that. Just amazing experience.
Have you been back since?
Nope.
No.
Never been back since.
Do you fancy going back at some point?
No.
You been to Egypt, John?
Yes. Yeah, I was out there the other Christmas.
You good?
Went out there family wise. Yeah, we went to. It was incredible place, brilliant place. Hurghada we went to.
Ah, right, yeah.
And played a couple of games of golf out there. It was different class. I'd recommend it. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So the commentary then, you're doing it at Hospital Radio. How does the chance to commentate in Bolton come about?
Not that long after Hospital Radio, I applied for a few jobs, worked for it was BT actually, my first step into full-time broadcasting, but it was called Supercall Sport then. And they did a lot of the, people might remember, the club call lines.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, I for a long time, before I dipped my toes full-time into broadcasting, I'd worked in industry and, you know, combined it with doing games, night times, Saturdays, Sundays. Got the opportunity, my first opportunity was a 6-month fixed-term contract. And I got to the stage where I thought, well, it's now or never. But I was confident, Derek, that I was always confident I could go back to do what I was doing. I was working at the time in the domestic heating department for the Direct Works at Manchester City Council. And I just thought, no, it's because I'm doing games at night time, Tuesdays, sometimes Wednesdays, Friday nights. I did a lot of games at Prenton Park at Tranmere Rovers for Supercall Sport. They played on Friday nights then. A few games at Stockport County. I was doing Saturdays, doing Sundays. And eventually they offered me a fixed term contract, but just for 6 months. So I thought, well, it's now or never. And it ended up being forever, really, to be honest with you, rather than now or never.
Yeah.
You know, eventually moved on. They sold it. The company got sold on. Then I started applying for jobs elsewhere. I think I got the job at the BBC on regular attendance at interviews because I think I had about 4 before eventually they thought, whether they were fed up of seeing me or not, I don't know. I think they thought, we better give this lad a job because we're fed up of seeing him, to be honest with you. So, yeah, and I was lucky at the time. Radio Manchester in those days were broadcasting from Oxford Road. And they were restructuring the sports department. I mean, it's a great geographical location to work in this area. If you're interested in sport, it is fantastic. So, and they were restructuring the department, so I think that helped a bit as well. And I don't think it was just me. It might have been me and one other person round about that time. So they wanted to bring in more people to cover sport. So, and when I'd been there a while, it was the season Bolton Wanderers, the first season they were here, or what was then the Reebok Stadium.
Yep.
They'd gone up. I'd done quite a few games at Burnden Park for Piccadilly Radio and for Radio Manchester. There was a chap who used to do all the Bolton home games, generally all of the Bolton home games, Alan Fullerlove at the time.
Yeah, I remember Alan.
You might remember Alan, John, yeah.
Yep.
I remember Alan. Nice fella, really good bloke. And a lot of people, again, going back to, you know, Bolton Wanderers as a club, an awful lot of people doing an awful lot for the club, you know, in the spare time. Alan used to do it. They went up, that season they went up, I think, record number of points. I know they went up at Manchester City. Colin Todd was the manager. And I'd done quite a lot of Oldham Athletic games at the time. Coincidentally, Oldham went down, Bolton came up. The sports editor at Radio Manchester, Andy Buckley, who used to work at the Bolton News a long time ago, he said to me, this was over a suitably liquid lunch in the old BBC club. He said, I want you to do Bolton Wanderers next season. They'd never had a dedicated reporter until, you know, he asked me to do it. And it must have taken me all of 6 seconds to say, yeah, I'll do that. I've never ever looked back. It's just been amazing. It's Derek, it's been a big, John, it's been a big part of your life as well. Obviously, it's got to be, hasn't it? I know you've played for other teams, but this is your club, isn't it?
Yes,
it is. It's been a massive part of my life. It really, really has. So, yeah, never looked back. Toddy was the manager at the time, and then they went down that season. Sam came in early the following season. Toddy left. I mean, what can you say under Sam? And what happened? You know, it is like what happened next, isn't it? You just absolutely, you couldn't imagine Bolton Wanderers marauding around Europe and squirting furry liquid in all those fountains, all those European nations that you visited. You know, just having fun and just absolutely amazing. And I feel sometimes for people who haven't experienced that with Bolton. I mean, I know you can go back further. You know that. And I know, you know, in the Nat Lofthouse era, and that was a great era for the club, John. You can't, you can't ignore that.
No.
But I still maintain that the most successful period in this club's history was going into the Premier League, getting to the League Cup final, finishing, beating Arsenal and teams like that. Oh, come on. You know, if you can't enjoy something like that, I don't think Arsene Wenger enjoyed it very much, to be honest with you. But Derek, just to be part of that, just to be part of, because you did feel part of it. You travelled, you know, on the planes to wherever they were going to play in Europe. It was just absolutely astonishing, absolutely. And Bolton were winning games and playing well, and beating all the big teams here.
Yeah.
You know,
especially where we came from, Jack. That's the thing. Do you know what I mean? So it was a fairy tale, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
And like you just said, to go to Bayern Munich, places like that, you know, and get a 2-2 out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you pinch yourself moments. Going to Atletico Madrid, 1-0.
Oof.
Yeah.
Do you know
absolutely.
What I mean, phenomenal.
Bonkers.
Absolutely. And that's probably why now it's harder to take where we are.
And that's the point I was alluding to. I feel sorry. I just hope that the current generation of Bolton Wanderers supporters, you know, get that opportunity to experience that. I mean, I did 5 years at Oldham Athletic as well with Joe Royal. There were 5 pinch me seasons. When Joe first came in, they were about 5th bottom. There was no Premier League then of the old second division. They won it. They went up as champions and they got into the first division. They haven't been there since about the early 1900s. Yeah. So I was lucky on 2 counts there. Before I was involved with Bolton, I did 5 absolutely great years. Joe was fantastic. He took me all over the world. Indian Ocean Games in Mauritius, pre-season tours, end of season parties. Oh, it was just, he took me all over the world, Joe. Wow. It was absolutely brilliant. It was Derek, it was different. It was much different in those days, covering football. You know,
get closer,
reporters with Oldham Athletic, even at that time, you know, when they played away, reporters, not just me, but other reporters. Pikey did Oldham Athletic for Piccadilly Radio. I think Tony Bugby had covered them for the Oldham Chronicle. The Manchester Evening News used to cover Oldham in those days as well, and you'd go on the team coach if you were going overnight. Oh, it was just fantastic. So, but because of my age, isn't it? I mean, it's not like that now. I'm not saying
it's changed.
It should be. No, it's changed massively.
No, I mean, there was a different relationship, wasn't there, between you and the manager and stuff like that. You got to know them. There was a trust, wasn't there?
There was a trust, and what we didn't have, of course, in those days, which we do have now, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's indifferent, we didn't have any social media.
That's a big thing.
There was no phones. There was no mobile phones. There was no cameras. So that's changed the whole world. You know what we live in now. You can't go back to those days, but to be a part of it, it's just been absolutely astonishing. And just going back to the Bolton Wanderers supporters, I used to pinch myself. You know, marauding around Europe. What Bolton doing here? what are we doing here actually? You know, hang on. Oh, you just got to. You probably don't. I think the fans did. I'm not sure if I could actually enjoy it and as much as I should have done at the time, because you do get a bit blasé, John. You think, oh, it's smashing. This will be the same again next season, and it was for a few seasons as well, by the way. And it used to be fantastic. Going to Old Trafford, first season back in the Premier League under Big Sam. Going to Old Trafford, winning 2-1. Watching Michael Ricketts, you know, push that centre half for United off the ball and firing it into the top corner. You know, Kevin Nolan scoring a goal as well. That's one of my greatest memories. It really, and I mentioned it before, the 4-0 win, sorry, Shuey, the 4-0 win at Wembley, that's got to stick in everybody's mind as well. But going to that, I'm pretty sure it was the first season Bolton had won promotion back in the Premier League under Sam. Went to Old Trafford, Saturday afternoon, 1-2-1. Wes Brown was the centre half. Michael Ricketts got the winning goal, fired it into the top corner. Barthez, I don't know, trying to speak French or something, trying to kick it out. I don't know what he did, to be honest with you, but it didn't work, whatever it was. And I'll never forget that. At 6:20, I remember being in the press box at Old Trafford and thinking, somebody better pinch me here. And they did it again the following season when Kevin Nolan scored a winner at Old Trafford in a night game as well. And you know, if you speak to Sam now, going back to that exact moment in time, I don't think he could probably, you know, you think, you know, he'd come in and say, how did that happen? You know, when him and Brownie were here, it was just fantastic. They were both really good with me as well, by the way.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, I know, yeah. And to be fair, so was, sadly no longer with us, Phil Gartside. And that's why I think, that time, Derek, I think, people are entitled to their opinion. And I'm not saying this is right, but in my view, and from my time covering Bolton, that was just astonishing. And I know they had some really good teams, you know, around about the Nat Lofthouse era, and even going back, you know, to the early 1900s. But that, for me, has been the best period in the whole history of the football club. When they went back into the Premier League under Sam, going around Europe, getting to the League Cup final, and having other, you know, just having this stadium built and coming in here, and all the big teams that used to come here. And being a part of that, that was the most, in my view, when Phil Gartside was here, obviously Eddie Davis was around as well then at that time. I think that was the most important period, a most successful period in the whole club's history. And, you know, I feel very, very lucky and fortunate and privileged to have been a part of, to have been around, not necessarily a part of it, but to have been around at that time to witness it. Yeah. And I just hope that fans, you know, the current generation, I hope they get something similar.
Yeah.
I really, really do.
As you said about being spoilt, Jack, I mean, what was the feeling from your perspective once the big superstar names started to appear? The Yorkiefs, the JJs, the Hieros, the Campos, and I'm going to keep going, and the Elkas. You know,
John, I couldn't keep up at the time. And it's just, I mean, I'm really glad you've mentioned that, but Fernando Hierro. What?
Rolls Royce.
What? He was the best defender in the world for 5 years at Real Madrid. All of a sudden, he's pulling up in the car park. All right, Fernando, where do I go? Where's the dressing room? Let's go down there, you'll be all right. Look, an awful lot of people deserve an awful lot of credit, you know, for that time. I don't think you could do that now, John. In modern day football, I don't think you could do what Sam could do.
No.
And let's be perfectly truthful with you. There's a few of those players that you've mentioned there, and even Nicholas Anelka was one. Bolton Wanderers resurrected his career.
Yes.
They completely resurrected his career. He would tell you that if he was here, Nicholas. I'm sure he would admit that. In fact, I'm sure he did. He was going nowhere. Was it Galatasaray? I can't quite remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But when he came here, it was going nowhere.
No.
And then, obviously, he went to Chelsea from here, didn't he? And those big names that you've just rattled off, Joachim, wow.
World Cup winner.
Absolutely.
Playing for Bolton.
Campo. Yeah.
I mean, when you look at it, Jack, right, and that, again, you felt privileged just to watch these guys.
Yeah.
They were playing for our football club, putting on a white shirt.
Yeah.
They've gone from a white shirt from Real Madrid to a white shirt of Bolton.
yeah. That might have been part of the deal. Who knows? You know.
But incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah, and some of the goals at the time that they scored. I mean, the win here against Aston Villa in the semi-final of the League Cup. They win 5-2. I think it was 5-2, wasn't it? Did their best to make a dog's dinner of it in the second leg, but managed to scrape through. I think got beat 2-0. But just seeing that and all the flicks, all the control, the confidence, that's what struck me, you know, from players of that era, the confidence. And that rubs off. They've got a great example. Can you imagine being in that dressing room and all of a sudden, you know, you're getting changed next to Campo, you know, Fernando Hierro. well, do me a favour.
As you said, pinch me moments, Jack.
John, that's why I say I hope. It's difficult now, and to even suggest that those days might return, because football's changed massively. Well, society's changed, the world's changed, and football has changed with it. I don't think you can do what Sam did nowadays. I really, really don't. And he was very good at what he did.
Yeah.
And he was very cute as well.
He was so far ahead of the game, Jack. He really was, because I mean, to recruit just them names, and that's no disrespect to anybody we haven't mentioned. By the way,
it isn't.
Because there's another list as long as your arm, as good as in there as well, that were recruited. You know, and it was an endless conveyor belt of players just coming in, and they were. And that's not even to say the Kevin Nolans that came through the ranks and people like that. Brilliant. You know.
Yeah, Kevin Davis as well.
Kev as well.
But they had the mix. You got to get the mix right. And I think Sam's gone on record as saying that he had to convince a big name player to come to Bolton Wanderers. And the way to convince them was not to take them to the old training ground as well, by the way. No. bring them to this stadium. I think he's gone on record of telling that story many times. You bring them. But I think they felt looked after. Just thinking back, this is one example I'm sure everybody will remember. I'll never ever forget this. Arsenal here, JJ Okocha. Keepy up is in this bottom corner down here. And he's flicking it over, he's got his heel on the ball, he's heading it down, bring it under. They couldn't get the ball off him. No. In fact, I can't remember who the defender was. It was a bit like a Cruyff turn, going back even further. And where's it gone? Oh, right.
Jack, it was Lee Dixon, England international.
Was it? Sorry, Lee. But I don't care.
Yeah, made a right fool of him.
Yeah. But it was.
Brilliant.
But that's what I mean by having that confidence.
Yeah.
They were special players, John. They played in World Cup. You don't play in the World Cup if you can't play.
Yeah.
You absolutely
Jack,
don't.
They weren't just special players; they were world superstars.
But also, I think you've made a really, really good point there as well. I'm going to make this point as well about Kevin Davis. Another one. I know I talked about Nicholas Anelka and they resurrected his career. I don't mean this unfairly or unkindly, but I think Kevin would probably tell you himself now, and he reflects on his footballing career. Anybody could have signed Kevin Davis at the time, right? But Bolton brought him in. They looked after players. And I think that was at that time. Whether it's still the same now, I think you like, whoever you work for, you like to feel as though you're being looked after, don't you? That somebody's got your back, for want of a better description. And I think that was a absolutely vital part of what happened here at Bolton Wanderers in that era under Big Sam. And they had people who was looking after them, whether it's... You've got to be settled, John. You want your kids to be in the right school. You want to be in the right area. And then you get the best out of players. But there were others, like you mentioned Kevin Nolan, I've mentioned Kevin Davis. Kevin Davis, different type of player. Kevin Nolan, different type of player. But that mix... It was just absolutely spot on, in my opinion. And also a couple who, Colin Toddy signed, I think, Jaskalainen, didn't he?
Yes, I was going to say, yes, Ricardo Gardner.
Ricardo Gardner, yeah, and I know he's been a guest recently on here, Ricardo.
Big Sam made them feel part of the community. They went out and done things.
Yeah.
So
but if you think about it, Derek, it doesn't matter what job you're in, but particularly football, because you're in the spotlight all the time in football, aren't you? Everybody gets criticised. Occasionally you'll get a pat on the back. You like to feel as though if you're coming in from a different country to start off with, never mind different district or a different area or a different location nationwide, you're coming in from a different country. Sometimes from the opposite side of the world, and you've played all over the world. I think you've got to do that. I think Bolton Wanderers at the time, I mean, it's probably not just Sam, probably a lot of people recognised that, and they decided. And I think once it got that decision made, and when you get somebody like a World Cup winner who's playing for you, then that sends a buzz around everybody. And I'd like to think that other people, because footballers talk to each other all the time, don't they? They'd like to think that, quick phone call, what do you think? Oh, it's great here.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Training's good, everything's good, and we shouldn't forget either, Bolton led the way in a lot of I know Sam has this reputation, Big Sam, and it's amazing, really. I remember when Chelsea first won the title under Mourinho, and when they did it, it was a long pass. When Bolton did it, it was a long ball. There's a significant difference, Derek, in that description straight away. But Sam, I always thought, was very, very scientific. Very scientific. Mm-hmm. Bolton led the way at that time across, even some of the big Premier League clubs didn't have the availability and the sports science and the knowledge that brought into the club.
At that time, Jack, we had the largest backroom staff in the league.
Yeah.
And that's how far Big Sam had taken it.
Yeah.
Because he had taken it to the next level, and they were catching him up. They were trying to catch him up because he was out in front, and it's a small percentages. Add them all up.
Yeah.
And they make a big difference.
Oh no, absolutely, and you do. People still say to me now, it's the small percentages that provide the wins, don't they? Yeah. And that can be the difference. But I think Bolton Wanderers led the way, and other people tried to copy it. Maybe they did, but Bolton were in front by that time. Yeah. They were definitely out there in front, and people used to speak to Sam, loads of articles, loads of features, and people were thinking, how's this happened? How have you done it, Sam? Well, this is, whether he gave away too many trade secrets at the time, because you wouldn't want to, would you? But it didn't happen by a fluke, and it didn't just happen once or twice. This was a regular occurrence at that time.
But as you said, the catalyst to that, Jack, was the big name signings.
Oh, has to be.
Because what that did, it didn't only give a confidence to the crowd, it gave a confidence to the board when they were making decisions, etc. And when you put that all together as a package, that was a difference in the club.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
No, absolutely, without doubt.
And also, for the likes of you guys, but not just local guys, nationally, we were getting more coverage, press-wise. I mean, it was, and from abroad as well. I mean, there was people camped here all the time from abroad.
Absolutely.
The Korean boys and that, the Japanese
they were even months
as well when they come in.
Yeah. Now, look, they were great days, and I must admit. But I've also got to say, I've really enjoyed the last few years. I do like it. This is fantastic to have this infrastructure and have a brilliant stadium like the one they've got here. And there are many of these around the country now, and many around the area as well. By the way, not too many as good as this, but I do like the traditional stadiums as well. Oh, yeah. So we've had a mix of that, and sometimes you've got to, when you've been where Bolton Wanderers have been, if you're not a Wanderers fan, look, you've got to understand that, if you're a supporter of a football club, you don't really care about what anybody else is doing, you just care about your club. And I've no doubt some people out there thinking, oh well, it's time Bolton were put in the place and all this sort of stuff. But even when you go, you've got to enjoy that bit, that not going down, but the traditional stadiums. That's why I said one of the most important seasons in Bolton's recent history was the ability to get back straight out. And when they went down to League Two, that was a really, really important season to come back at the first time of asking. And if you ask the fans who went round that season, John, that we saw many of them, they kind of, you've been up there and you kind of think, well, I've got to try to enjoy being here now. But to get out of it, and obviously you want to get out of the league they're in now without any question of a doubt.
Yeah.
Well, if you go back to that day at Crawley, Jack, if you remember, I mean, it was an empty stadium, wasn't it? We were privileged to go in. We were privileged to be in there at that point.
We were.
The fans were outside, weren't they?
But the fans, the number that had travelled down just to stand outside, and the players all knew they were outside there, didn't they? And at the end, the final whistle, they all bolted, didn't they, through the gates, out to say... Obviously, with COVID, they shouldn't have been
social
within 6 feet of them, but they were all hugging and jumping, weren't they?
They were here the week before, expecting to
outside,
go up.
Out the top.
I think they play at Northampton Town as well. Is it Northampton where you can stand on a hill or something on the bank there, and wherever
Forest
you went,
Forest Green as well. I think.
And what about when they came back to the club? And we were in COVID then, and there was a sad time for lots and lots of people, but. There were lots of fans who welcomed them back, and like I said, it shouldn't have happened. In terms of what was going on then, because we were in the COVID era. But you just look back and you think, well, it's a memory, isn't it? And I'd forgotten about that, the COVID campaign, John. Yeah, but that was going up as well, wasn't it? The COVID campaign.
We were together at that point, but we had to travel separately, didn't we?
Oh, we did.
Remember?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Well, blimey, Charlie, let's not return to those days. No, don't want to go back to those days. But glad to have got through it. Glad to, but a sad time for many people as well. We need to recognise that. We really do.
To think back, isn't it?
Oh, it was.
See, when you said Bundon, Jack, what was that like to work at Bundon compared to here?
I always liked Bundon Park.
Yeah.
John would tell you, what that was like. It was. In its own way. I mean, this is entirely different.
Yeah.
And I mentioned traditional stadiums. Even Bundon Park as a traditional football stadium of that era, I still think it was one of the better ones. And when it was full, it was absolutely rocking, John. You'll have played many games. In fact, one that always sticks in my mind, it's the last ever game there against Charlton Athletic, which I did for BBC Radio Manchester. And that will be an abiding memory for me as well in terms of Bundon Park. But it was special, wasn't it?
Absolutely, Jack. I know we've said so many times previously, especially a midweek game under the lights or a cup game, you know what I mean? It was just mesmerising place. It was incredible. The atmosphere, everything about it was just good. Like you said, tradition, wasn't it? The history that was steeped in history, wasn't it?
Of course it was.
And then you mentioned that last game against Charlton, to see Sir Nat and all the 58 boys and all the big name players throughout the years walking round the pitch in a lap of honour before the game.
Yeah.
And Sir Nat had tears in his eyes and everything because it was really emotional.
Yeah. And
you got to remember it's a memorial to 33 people that sadly lost their lives as well there,
Yeah.
So much history, so many big games, so many things that had gone on at that stadium. And like you said, it's just miss it.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Well, yeah. And a lot of people still do. But you've got to... It's difficult sometimes. I get it. I understand it about the tradition and what's gone before. Anything that's been there for such a long time and has been an established place for people. It's a worship, isn't it? When you support a football club, you go to worship, don't you?
Yeah.
I think you do. If you're a genuine fan, and I'll tell you why you go to worship, because even really sometimes, and I think we've all been there, I don't want to go. Why am I doing this? But you still do it. That's not tradition. That's beyond tradition. That's beyond what you do on a Saturday afternoon or a Tuesday or Wednesday night. That's worship.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important that you get some sort of reward. And everybody, if you look at Bolton, realistically, they're not. Are they going to win the FA Cup? I hope so. Are they going to win the League Cup? Hope so. Is it likely? Probably not. So you're playing for one thing. I mean, as we are this season, still in with a great chance of getting a playoff position. And then anything can happen if you get in there. But it's a worship. And you feel part of it. It's not like if you're like going in a supermarket and you spend your money or something like that. You feel a part of it. If you're a season ticket holder, or if you just pay your admission money and buy a programme and buy a pie or get a hot bovril or whatever else you drink, you feel part of it. And you've got other people there who feel part of it as well. And that's how it spreads. And that's what it should do. I mean, but you'll have bad days, of course you will. But you do that anyway. That's life, isn't it? You don't have a fantastically, enterprisingly brilliant day every single day of your life. Well, you might. I don't.
That's the other side of it, though, Jack. I mean, this town's seen some hard times, especially recently.
Correct.
And I think we've got to realise that there's a lot of people that come here, and the only respite they get is coming to watch their team on a Saturday for a couple of hours. 2-3 hours on a Saturday. They can forget about all their worries, watch their team, get behind their team, and like I said, it just gives them a break, doesn't it?
Oh, of course it does. It's just amazing to be able to do that, and they do. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to use it's unfair, I think, to describe it as a working class town or a working class area, because there's been some bright people and there will continue to be bright people. But it's just that historically, that's what it's been, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, people, you come, you work, you go to watch Wanderers if you're a Bolton Wanderers supporter, and to have so many fans in this geographical location, right, you know, on the cusp of Manchester, Liverpool, Burnley, East Lancashire, Blackburn, etc. And it's just absolutely staggering. That's why it surprised me a little bit in the last few years, since the new owners have been here, or maybe since the previous owners went, how many Bolton Wanderers fans have decided that, no, this is for me, this is my club, and I'm going to go and support them. And I think, you know, you touched on the COVID campaign as well, and I think that altered a lot of people's lives. I'm not just talking about football here. Obviously, well, we've all been through it, so it altered our life, didn't it? I think it must have done, and I think people thought, and how much it proved a hope to the football authorities and the governing bodies, just how important supporters are, not just to football, to all sports. Because if you ain't got supporters, genuine ones, and I'm going back to the worship stuff here, Derek, genuine ones, then you ain't got anything.
Yeah.
Do you not think, though, Jack, as well, going along with, like you said, to build up the fan base to the extent it's at now, which is incredible in this division, I think that Papa John's final went a long way towards that as well. Because I think that game, like you said, for me, it's one of the best days I've had in football.
Yeah.
To see my grandkids there celebrating with my kids, that means so much to me. And to look at that, we got so many kids. After that final, there were so many kids going around Bolton wearing shirts again. And we hadn't seen that for years. And I think we got a lot of fans off the back of that the kids wanted to come here and watch that. Because, like you said, kids now are saturated, aren't they, watching it on Sky, etc. And it's all Man United, Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea. Bolton have kind of got left behind because of where we are. So the local kids, you were seeing a lot of these big teams, their shirts locally. Now you're back seeing the Bolton shirts.
John, anybody who was at that stadium and any Wanderers fans who saw it on TV, that will be a day that they will remember for the rest of their life. Because we know, you know, everybody knows, you don't get to a Wembley Cup final and win 4-0 on a regular basis.
Nah.
If you can go and be part of that, and I think you've made a great point, actually, you've nailed it there. I think that did go a long way to maybe not quite an entirely new generation of Bolton Wanderers supporters, but it reawakened the support, I think.
Yes.
And I also think that, like I mentioned it earlier, I think the new owners have somehow, and I don't think it's easy to do this, but they've reconnected with the town overall. You know, the community situation at this club has improved massively in the last few years and continues to thrive, and hopefully will continue to move on and go better in the future. So I think all that helps as well. But the main thing is what happens out there on that pitch. That's got to be the priority. That's the drive. That's what drives everything. Out there, what happens on the field. And I know there's lots and lots of pressure, but when you were playing here, John, the pressure from when you were playing, if you're a footballer, there's a pressure to win. There's always a pressure to win. There's always going to be a pressure to win.
More so, Jack, big games, and they're the games you want to play in.
Of course.
And, you know, if as a player, if you can't handle pressure, you're not in the right profession, are you?
No. No. I mean, I was going to say, maybe there's more pressure now. I'm not sure.
No.
I'm not sure. It's a different era, and sometimes it seems a bit more important. But when you were playing, I mean, that was pressure. Was there any difference? Is there any difference to the pressure to win a trophy, to win important games, to win the games and the matches that matter? Because some matter more than most.
Well, the end result was always the same, Jack. So you're looking at it, you're playing in front of big crowds, same pressure.
Yeah.
I think the only difference now is there's maybe an added pressure, maybe because of social media. There's maybe a bit of an added pressure there because, I mean, everything's out there straight away, isn't it?
Yes.
Other than that, no, there's still pressure. I mean, you've got to be able to handle it. And I think, especially playing for this football club, it can be difficult at times. you know, because of the expectation.
Yeah.
I mean, the fans are very expectant because of where we've been. So you have to be able to handle that.
I agree.
You know, and it's a heavy shirt to wear at times.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure. I think there are certain clubs that suit certain players. And look, and people are different. I'm not talking about the footballing abilities and capabilities here. It's the way that they are as people.
Yes.
And you know, some people are, will provide a driving force. Some people will just turn up and play and go home, and some people won't. That's just how people are. That's human beings being relatively straightforward. We are not all the same. We're not all built the same.
But you need all sorts in a dressing room.
Of
Jack.
course you do.
You know, you can't all be the same in a dressing room.
Don't want that, do you?
You don't want that.
No, we don't want that in life, John.
No.
You don't. You know, my dad always used to say it wouldn't do if everybody were the same.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't.
And that's what makes it very important, probably from a coaching standpoint and probably the manager standpoint, is management's huge. Because they're all different types, you've got to be able to manage that.
It's probably more difficult. I don't know, you tell me, because you've been in that era. I don't know. I was about to say it may be a bit more difficult nowadays because of the circumstance surrounding social media.
Yeah.
You can't do anything without somebody knowing about it.
No.
More or less. And and that's a pressure in itself as well. Not necessarily enjoyable. And I think sometimes it's probably a little bit unfair, but it isn't going to go away. That is just the world that we have now we live in. And I think if you're aware of it, then that probably helps. But every now and again, the people might just slip up or slip off the catch and think, because it's easily done, isn't it?
Very.
Especially if anything at all connected with sport in particular, or lots of other industries as well now, you just can't.
What scrutiny, isn't
You just got to watch your P's and Q's, as my dad used to say.
See, as well as doing the commentary, Jack, you obviously speak to the managers on a regular basis. You mentioned there Colin Todd, but you've went through a number of Bolton managers. Big Sam, of course, you've been speaking about. What have they all been like to chat with? Yeah.
I think I've been lucky, Derek, really, generally speaking. In fact, not even generally speaking. I've never had any sort of an issue. I think I'm on, I can't remember, it's 10 or 11 now with Stephen Schumacher, the head coach, since I've been covering Bolton Wanderers. Mm-hmm. Toddy was good. Yeah, he was fine. Sam, obviously, the longest, I think, around that time. Yeah, but been some good ones. They've all been... They all, like I said, you're going back to human beings, aren't you? They're all different, and they've all got their own structural ways of how they do things, how they want to do things. But I can't remember having an issue at all. There was an issue with Sam, obviously, going back, with the Panorama drama a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, it's nothing to do with me, but that didn't help. Mm. But generally speaking,
because it was a BBC issue, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Well, Sam was very unhappy about it and probably still is. And I understand that, But all the other ones have just been good to work with. Some are more fun than others. Some are, a bit more tricky to deal with than others. But again, that's life, isn't it? It really, really is. I mean, a good friend of yours, Owen Coyle, was great. He did some good work here.
Yes.
Coyle was different to Dougie Freedman. Dougie Freedman was different to Neil Lennon. And, they were different to Phil Parkinson, etc., etc. So you've got to try to establish a reasonable relationship. And that in itself can be difficult at times, especially... when things aren't going well on the field, if the team are losing, that's nobody wants that to be the case, but inevitably, at some stage, that's going to happen, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I've been through a lot. I think it's 11, might be 12 now. Can't remember with Stephen. Mm-hmm. But you've got to try. I mean, they've probably got to try as well. It's probably the last thing they want. somebody like me sticking a microphone up the nose.
Especially if things haven't gone as well as expected.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. But some deal with it better than others. Some are more difficult to understand than others. But generally speaking, right across the board, I've been very, very fortunate, I think. I really, really have. I've always managed to, I don't know, have a decent relationship with all the ones, every single one, and even some of the ones who were only there for a short period of time, in terms like caretaker managers or interim managers, and there's been a few of them down the years as well.
And I mean, you've mentioned some big games that you've commentated on, Jack. Everyone remembers the Forest game, of course. Here, what was that like to be here and amongst it, and obviously the goal at the end?
Well, the goal at the end, which I think a lot of people will remember, which kept Bolton Wanderers up that year, completely against the odds. Just astonishing. You just had to. You had to be here to. Bolton were down. Bolton were relegated, weren't they? Let's be honest. Until the last 3 minutes, and then was it Davy Wheatrue pulled a goal back?
Yeah.
That made it 2-2. They're still down. Next attack. Adam Lafondra. The rest, as they say, is history. Just. I'm going to say, is that one of my best moments? It shouldn't be really, but it's interesting because that's a perfect illustration. And I've talked before about winning trophies and there's not much to play for. Realistically, that probably felt as good at the time as any other, winning a cup or
because what it meant,
because of what it meant, and because of the way it came about as well. When you're losing and you're going out and you're going to be relegated, to get that turnaround in the final few minutes, just absolutely astonishing. And that's one of those occasions where it can feel, if not as good, probably can feel better if you stay up, whoever you support, in the division that you started off in. If you've had a tough division off, a tough season for whatever reason, and we all know the reason, why that was particularly difficult at the time. But to do that's an achievement in itself. That felt fantastic that day, that moment, that day. That felt very, very special. That's got to be up there. Probably some people will say for all the wrong reasons, but with everything that was going on around this club at the time, and everything that mattered, and everybody thinking Bolton are going to be relegated, and then next news, 3-2.
Yeah.
Let's have a party.
Yeah. We had Aaron Abraham on a few weeks ago, didn't
we?
He was brilliant. There's great value on that. And obviously you're commentating into the microphone and all that. It's just, can you give people that aren't familiar with how that works? An event like that happens, you're just there off the cuff, just pure emotion into the microphone.
Well, I think that's it. I think emotion, enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I've always it's not simple, but you just have to say what you see at the time, and
to quote the famous Roy Walker.
Pardon?
To quote the famous Roy Walker, he came out with that one.
Is it
Roy Walker? Yeah.
Oh, is it? All right. Yeah. Say what you see. Well, yeah, because that's what we're doing, isn't it? That's what you do.
Yeah.
It's what John does. That's what commentators do. You say what you see.
Yeah.
But Derek, I've been really, really lucky that, especially that particular day as well. I've been really, really lucky to have lots of good moments like that. We talked earlier about going up at Crawley, and that was fantastic as well, because there were times in that season when you thought, might not quite work out this in the way that it was intended, etc., etc. Even going into that game on that day, and they won very comfortably in the end, which is nice sometimes. But you can't. What I like about it in the live environment, you can't make it up. You can't recreate it. I couldn't recreate that moment now, and with Aaron Wilbraham scoring that header.
Yeah.
I could try, but it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
But because it's just the emotion. You'd have to ask somebody far more smarter than me to explain what goes through and what it means at that moment in time. But I've always said, say what you see. And I've always tried to be. I don't think people want to hear misery and anything else if you're commentating, etc. I've always been, maybe I have always been emotional as a person, maybe.
Yeah.
And I've always been enthusiastic, and I'm always going to be, whatever I'm commentating on.
But you're commentating, Jack, now. I mean, well, not just now, but when you start, you've got a feel for the club, and it means something to you, and that's the way it comes across.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not just commentating. It's like a fan, isn't it? Calling the game as such when we score.
It after so long, John, it can't not mean anything.
Yeah.
Of course it does, and obviously that peeps through at times. And I know some people say, it's supposed to be neutral, you're not supposed to be biased, etc., etc. But you can tilt that a little bit if you're on BBC local radio to suit, the listeners. Whether that's right or whether that's wrong, it's not necessarily wrong on local radio. If I was doing it nationally, that would be entirely different, and I would probably have to do it in a different way. But I don't do it nationally, and it does. There's no reason why it shouldn't peep through, in my opinion. And that's just the way I've done it. I can't do. That's the way I'm enthusiastic about life, not just about commentating on Bolton Wanderers. And I ain't going to alter now because I'm too old. I don't want to. Thanks. No, I don't want to.
We don't want you to change.
So stand by for more.
We don't want you to change either, Jack.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, no, it's been fantastic. And as I said, it's been a big part of my life.
Yeah. Do you enjoy as well? I mean, whenever we go to the hotel or whatever, you're always surrounded by guys wanting to shake your hand and having a chat with you. Do you like that adulation from
do I like it? Do I like it? I don't mind it. And I get it. Yeah, but I don't. What I don't understand is I just think, well, look, because it's sport, Derek, and you'll know this yourself. You can't relate it to any other type of occupation, really, can you? I just always I like chatting to people. I've always liked that. Probably just as well. It's okay. I can, not everybody likes it, but I don't mind it at all whatsoever. And it doesn't have to be about football. I'll talk about the weather. I'll talk about holidays. What you've had for your breakfast or your tea or your supper or your dinner. No, I've always quite liked that. I like chatting to people, whether I'm in a supermarket, a shop, or whatever. I just like chatting to people, probably just as well, I think, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it helps.
Yeah, I never expected anything like that. When you first started, but you wouldn't, would you? Well, I don't know anybody. Maybe people do come into the industry because they expect that sort of stuff, but I never did. Yeah, I never ever did that. But no, I don't. I quite like it, and I always try to remember that everybody's entitled to their opinion. There've been a lot of them.
Yeah,
should have seen some of the letters when people used to send letters to the BBC. Wow, I don't know what happened to them now, but it won't be repeatable on here. That's for sure.
Do you have the same enthusiasm when you first started to now? Because obviously it oozes out of you.
I think my enthusiasm, Derek, is greater now.
I'd agree with that.
I think it is than when I first started.
Yeah.
Because you're a little bit cautious, and I think it's not a question of becoming comfortable. I think you become more familiar with what you're doing, and with that you get a bit more confidence. I think when you first start out, it's a little bit some sort of trepidation at the back of your mind.
Yeah.
But I even now I listen to a lot of commentary, particularly on radio, and try and pick out the best bits of what I like and what I don't like, or what I prefer. Not necessarily what I don't like, but what I prefer. And I still listen to an awful lot of commentary on particularly on radio. And
Is that you still trying to sort of improve?
Oh yeah, I think so. Well, I hope so. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, probably got to. You might get to a certain level where you think you're not going to go any better, but I don't think that should prevent me or anybody else, for that matter, from trying to improve or trying to do something better. I mean, sometimes you're helped by the game itself, aren't you? You would know that yourself. Sometimes you're helped by the game.
Yeah.
If it's been drab or whatever else it's been, then that doesn't help. But even then, I don't know. It's just how I am. I'm enthusiastic. I'm enthusiastic about life, and I feel so fortunate to be able to do what I've done. For the last 30 odd years, probably getting on for 40 now.
Yeah.
Best part of
Incredible.
it is. Yeah. It is.
Doesn't look old enough, does he?
Trust me, I am. Trust me, I am.
So about this season, we going back to Wembley or what? Or how do you see it going?
I think you get in the playoffs, Derek. Yeah, I said that quite a while ago, so I'm not going to backtrack on that. Got a bit of work to do. Disappointment, of course, against Rotherham recently, but no, I just think they'll rally, and I think they'll probably sneak in the playoffs. But I also think it'll go down to the final game of the season for probably a couple of teams.
Yeah. Here against Stevenage, isn't
Well,
it?
it might not.
Yes.
Yeah, last game's here, Stevenage, isn't it? Yeah, last game of the season. I think it will. I think it's looking that way.
I hope you're right, Jack.
Yeah. Well, if it doesn't, so do it again next season.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't always get what you want, can you? You don't always get what you want in your life.
Yeah.
You don't always get what you deserve either.
No.
So, but no, it's generally it's just been look like everybody else. I want Bolton Wanderers to win promotion this season. It would be interesting, Derek, to answer your question about are we going back to Wembley, not to lose. I ain't going back to Wembley to lose again.
Yeah.
Sorry, no. Leave me out of that detail. No, but you can't. You don't know, do you?
I know.
You'd like to think. I get the feeling around and the players. I do get the feeling that the players would like to go back and prove a point or put right.
I think Stephen Schumacher would like to go back and rectify. Last thing we were standing there, right?
Yeah, against Bolton,
Yeah.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Go back to Wembley, win 4-0.
Be very nice.
There you are, Shuey.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. You were just at the wrong club at the wrong time,
Yeah.
Pop. Actually, to be fair, he did a great job at Plymouth, didn't he?
Yeah. Did.
He really, really did. Did a fantastic job at Plymouth. But that'd be nice. That's hold that thought.
Yeah.
Bolton 4, whoever they're playing at Wembley 0. Oh yeah, easy. What was that drama about? What's all this season's drama been all about?
Exactly.
Here we are.
So
Sun's shining.
Yeah.
So
let's hope you're right.
Blue and white ribbons on the cup.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, it's been magnificent having you on, Jack. So thanks
thank
very
you.
much.
Really enjoyed it. Been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
King Jack, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Top man.
Been a good pal to me over the years.
Yeah.
Super.
Thank you, Jack.
Yeah. Oh no,
You
you
too.
have. No, you have. I mean, I remember, when I was diagnosed, we didn't have dark discussions, but we had a few interesting discussions. You were really, really helpful.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much for that and for this.
Wanderers Way, the official podcast of Bolton Wanderers Football Club in association with iHeat.